Thank you so much, Sister Lanium, for the beautiful sharing on the 3 jewels. I wanted to take a moment, speaking of doing few things and doing them well. Sister Hui Tri is very good at making tea. And so I want to have a chance for all my brothers and sisters to have a cup of tea. I don't know if over there you have teacups. Anyone would like? I think she was not wanting to interrupt Sister Lanium to pass the teacup. And while we're enjoying some tea up here, I just take a moment to introduce our group that's come today. I think we conceived of this idea with a group we had talking about what it would be like to honor our teacher here in Los Angeles with something a little bit more formal, like a museum or cultural center in the name of our teacher, Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh. And that group had been meeting already for quite a few months, maybe 6 months or so, when the Palisades fire and the various fires here in LA happened. And then we saw that we really need to do something now to support all of the Sangha members who, some of them lost their homes. I know many friends and family were displaced. And so back in January we said, let's do a day of mindfulness. And the team formed slowly. And so in Deer Park we brought it to the Monastic Sangha, and there was a lot of support. And we said maybe 4 brothers and 4 sisters. And then there was so much enthusiasm, we have 5 sisters. So 9 of us came today. And I don't know which way this cup's going. Yeah. So we'll enjoy our tea for a moment. This is called lotus tea. Huh? Jasen? Yeah. It has the flavor of the lotus flower. And so you go in, does anyone know about this kind of tea? You raise your hand. Who has had lotus tea before? Yes, a few people. So you take usually oolong tea, and you go out in the boat, in the pond with the lotuses, and when the flower is open, and you put the tea inside the flower. And then in the evening, the flower closes. And so the fragrance of the flower penetrates the oolong tea. And then you can come back the next day and you take out the tea. And sometimes you can do it for a few days. And so Sister Hui Tri just offered us a very delicious lotus tea. So maybe I'll start, just since I already started to introduce Sister Hui Tri. So she's Sister Hui Tri, which means Sister Insight, and or wisdom. And she's, I think, the eldest of us who have come today. She ordained a little bit before I did. And she was also the abbess of our center in Germany for a number of years, the European Institute of Applied Buddhism. I think we need an Institute of Applied Buddhism in America. They have one in Europe. And now we're very fortunate she's living at Deer Park with us. And then we have Sister Lanium, who just gave the talk, the first introduction. And she's, as she said, from Australia and from Vietnam originally, from Ninh Binh, huh? Nam Dinh. We went to visit her house last year in Vietnam. It's so lovely. And actually, it's very interesting because we're in a church today, but when we went to visit Sister Lanium's house, we also went to a big church, a Catholic church, and had a conversation with the priest there. And he was not open for us to do chanting in the church. So I'm grateful today we could do a chant. We actually wanted to offer that chant we just did today in that Catholic church in Namdin, and he was like, "What are you going to chant?" So we felt, oh, maybe we But so we're very grateful for the All Saints congregation, because we feel the brotherhood and sisterhood. It's real, our Christian brethren, and we are one in spirit. And am I right? Is Sister Grace, Sister Angnim? It's a wonderful. She's my co-conspirator with the chanting direction in Deer Park. She's a wonderful chanter, a wonderful voice, and grew up in Vietnam, but I think you're a citizen now in the U.S., huh? That's right, yeah. She lived at Blue Cliff Monastery and also in Australia, in our center there, and now we're very fortunate to have her at Deer Park. We have Sister Ancient Temple, Sister Chuasua. So this is an ancient temple. And so for the children's program, she calls herself Sister Bong Bong, because the ancient temple has the bell, and the bell goes bong bong. So she's Sister Bong Bong. You can call her. And we lately we've been working together, coming up with online courses at Deer Park. So she's the mastermind behind a mindful cooking course that hopefully you'll see next year. So you get to cook some of the vegan dishes that we have in the monastery. And then we have Brother Mindfulness, Brother Min Niem. Brother Min Niem is, I was telling him yesterday, Southern California is kind of like its own nation. It's kind of like, is it true? Like we have you have the ocean on one side, you have the desert on the other, you've got the transverse ranges right there behind this thing, or that way. And then, well, if we forget about political borders for a moment, it goes all the way down to Baja, right? And it's kind of like this. I'm from New England, so I've been living in Southern California, and so we have a number of Southern California brothers here who are supporting the day, and Brother Minim is one of them. He's from San Clemente, and worked in political organizing before he became a monk, and now he works in spiritual organizing. And then Sister Ao Ngim. Sister Ao Ngim, like some of our sisters here, grew up in a big temple in Vietnam we call Prajna Monastery, or Insight Monastery, and she lived in the U.S. for a number of years at Magnolia Grove Monastery, and then also now at Deer Park for a number of years. And she's a very wonderful Sangha builder. This past year she's been the work coordinator, or CTC, in Clarity, and I just very much admire her. She works with the mind of non-discrimination, always including everyone in the Sangha. Very lovely. And then over here are the two Southern California brothers. We have Brother Peace, Brother Min An, who you already met, singing the songs earlier today. Brother Peace is an LA native. Grew up in the West Side, I think. And I'm learning these terms. I'm not a local LA. Somebody just told me West Side, and I was like, okay, I can use that one. But I don't know exactly where. Yeah, and I think it was a very also emotional moment for him, as for many too. His neighborhood was burned down, and although his family is not there anymore, and so he was telling me walking through the area where he gave his guitar lessons before he was a monk. It was very emotional. And so I appreciate, you being here and supporting the energy of many people who've been affected. Yeah. And Brother Min Lung, Brother Generosity from Laguna Beach, and grew up on the surfing team. So as we were on the surf liner, he was pointing out, he's like, yeah, that's the beach where I was on the surfing team, and we used to, go by the pier there, and yeah. Anyway, I think both Brother Peace and Brother Min Lung were you were on the lifeguard training. I have images of Baywatch in my mind, and I think, no. You know, like with the yeah, it's like that, but you were 11, yeah. So so Brother Generosity also is a very, very kind brother in the community who supports everything. He was work coordinator recently in Solidity Hamlet and likes to build things, and especially build the Sangha. I think he's a very approachable brother, very easy to come to. Yeah. So it's a little bit about us. And I'm Brother Phap Luu, or Brother Stream. And yeah, I grew up way over there on the other side of this country, in Connecticut, and I lived most of my life in Plum Village, France, as a monk, and now I had the chance this past few years to come back to Deer Park, where I also lived as a novice for a few years, and I just feel Thai is very happy right now that we're all here together practicing. This is what we're doing together, is we're rooting the Dharma in this land. And that's something, when we look around this congregation, all of us here, and we see not only who is here, but also all of our ancestors who are present with us, we are doing it. It's happening. The Dhamma is getting rooted here in America, and this is part of a process of many hundreds of years. And the challenges that we're facing, for me, in my heart, I know because we have the Dhamma, that's why it's different this time. That's why we will overcome. We will learn to transform our suffering. And I have deep, deep faith and deep confidence in that. And so what's happening here in All Saints Church, all of us coming together here, is part of that process. I think Joanna Macy called it the Great Turning. She just recently passed away, just a few weeks ago. Great teacher and environmentalist who really helped us to see that Mother Earth is in every cell of our body, as Thai often taught us. And we are part of that turning. Don't feel like you're outside of it. We are all in this great soup together. Thai called it interbeing, that we cannot be by ourselves alone. And I think that word will become more and more prominent in these coming years. We need to be able to realize that in every moment of our daily life. And that word is not only for Buddhists. That is Christian, Muslim, Jewish, agnostic, atheistic. If you are a devotee of scientific materialism, you can also believe in interbeing, because you see that physics, biology, chemistry is all what's going on in every cell of our body. And we inter-are with the trees, the air, the earth, and each other. So as my sister said, my joy is your joy, my suffering is also your suffering. And that is not just a statement, but it's something that we realize when interbeing is not a theory, it's something we practice. We realize in the flesh. So it's incarnate practice. And it's actually already there, so we can say it's a form of reincarnation. Because we already have the insight of interbeing, but we just have to remove something we call ignorance so that we can see it more clearly. Thai used to tell us a story that in India, when they would teach you something, like mathematics, they wouldn't say that the teacher, I know mathematics, and you, the student, you need to receive mathematics from me. But they would say that you already understand mathematics, and I just remove your ignorance of it. That's the job of the teacher, is to remove the veil, remove the ignorance. And there's a very deep teaching in that, because if we look inside our body and mind, we can often see a critic there, someone who's judging. We judge ourselves, we judge others. When you see someone who judges you harshly, just imagine how harshly they're judging themselves. When someone blames you, just remember how much they're blaming themselves inside, how painful it is. And then that gives rise to compassion. And the insight we get with the practice is that actually we are inherently good. And that we don't need to continue to feed that critic, that one who's judging and blaming us day in and day out. That's actually something we learn from society. We learn from social media. We learn from times when we've been humiliated, embarrassed as a young person. So there's that wounded child inside of us. And instead of recognizing it, we think that we've done something wrong. Or even more, that like in the concept of original sin, that we're originally wrong. And that actually we need to train ourselves to be a good person. But what I would like to come back to again and again today is that you are inherently good. You are good. As human beings, we are inherently good. And there is goodness in the universe. There is goodness in the hearts of all kinds of beings. There is goodness in the stone that is beneath us here. There's goodness in the earth. And that it's only our habit energies, our ways in which we've fed our thinking, our actions of our speech, our bodily actions that give rise to our hatred, our anger, our frustration, our irritation, and all the violence that comes from those strong emotions. And that is a deep insight of the Buddha, that there is this inherent goodness. Later, teachers called it a Buddha nature, or more accurately, it's translated as the womb of the Tathagata. Tathagata Garbha in Sanskrit. It's like there's the seed of what's another name for the Buddha, Tathagata, the seed of the Tathagata within each one of us. And through our practice of mindful breathing, mindful walking, we will soon practice mindful eating. We grow that seed in our consciousness. And Tai reminded us we can be a part-time Buddha. Because usually when you have that critic, then maybe in a moment you think, oh, I'm a Buddha. But then later you trip on a stone, or you say something hurtful as soon as you get home, right? It's like you're a Buddha out in a professional Buddha, but you come home and it's another kind of behavior. What happened to the Buddha, the Bodhisattva that's out there in public? Yeah. And so then you start to judge and criticize and think, I'm worthless. So it's almost like we have what do you call it? Bipolar disorder in the collective consciousness. Yeah, there's one within ourselves. Now we are good, and when you're good, you're wholly good. And then when you're bad, you're totally bad. Right? And we just pivot between those two over and over, and then our body and mind become exhausted. So the insight of interbeing is that the good is in the bad, and the bad is in the good. That the reality of our experience is actually non-dual. That our ideas of good and bad are only a creation of our mind, and that inherently we are all those things. So when I say we're inherently good, it means we're also inherently bad. They're not separate. But it's that we can trust in our own nature as human beings. If we look around this cathedral, maybe I don't call it correctly as a cathedral, it's just a church, but it's so big, I want to say cathedral. And it's I'm I'm reminded of, what is it, the harmonic proportions or something? I can't remember the term, but I'm thinking of the culture of Al-Andalus, and you go into some of the courtyards, and there's these harmonic proportions that create a sense of humanity. Like you feel it's at human scale. It gives you awe and wonder being in here in the church and looking at the woodwork, at the columns, at the arches, at the stained glass. But it's at human scale. It's a building made for human beings. And we are human beings and we're in the building. And so this beautiful space reminds us of our own human scaleness, that we live at a human scale. And that's important. So having a place to come together like this is becoming more and more important, because when we are dealing with issues like artificial intelligence, we're dealing with something very, very new. And it's not happening at a human scale. When we walk today, we could see, I noticed we crossed the street and then there was a car and he saw all the humans walking along. And then you see he turned the other way. He's like, I'm not going to sit here and wait for these people to cross the street. I'm going to find another way around. And it reminded me of how, when we walk around Pasadena, we see how do we prioritize the human beings or do we prioritize the cars? It's in the way we build things that we prioritize. And so the way we build community, the way we build a house, the way we build this city, it shows us what our priority is. So I can see that the planners of Pasadena, their priority was the automobile. But I want us to ask ourselves, as part of this great turning, what is our priority? For me, it's a human scale. Because I trust in humanity. I trust in what kind of movement. I mean, walking like that, just as we did, hundreds of people in silence. People see that. They say, what's going on? Are they protesting something? They ask that question. And so whenever we did walking with Thai, even when we do in a demonstration, we wouldn't carry posters. Because when you see a group of people walking in mindfulness, enjoying every step, and they don't have a sign, or if they have a sign, then this moment of awe and wonder gets reduced to a slogan. It's just like this church is mostly free of sign, of a word or a slogan. And so when you look, you have the awe and wonder. But as soon as you see one word, your mind collapses. It's like the quantum wave equation. The story of Schrodinger's cat, right? You don't know if the cat is alive or dead until you open the box, and then it collapses. And it's one thing or the other. So mindfulness practice for me is keeping that wonder alive, because that wonder is when we are most truly human. And that wonder keeps us from collapsing into good, bad, right, wrong, up, down, black, white, and all these categories. Citizen, immigrant, and so forth, that are afflicting our collective consciousness right now. Maybe we can take a moment and come back to our breathing as we listen to a sound of the bell, and just notice how when you put all your attention on your breath, there's no thinking of right and wrong, good or bad. We don't discriminate. Our mind and body become one. There's no dualism. There's only one, the breath and this present moment. So when we learned we were coming to All Saints, I went on the website for the church and I saw there was a sermon, and the minister was speaking it from that pulpit. And he said, "A reading from the Gospel of Rumi." I said, "Oh, I like this church." Yeah, so I wanted to hold up this feather. Actually, I have two. This is one of the smaller ones. You cannot see from there, but they're tinted green and orange. And so we learned about the parrots of Pasadena yesterday. And we're kind of speaking of wonder and awe. We were walking down the street with Andrew and Laura Lee, our hosts, and there's this cacophony of parrots. I mean, what are they talking about? I mean, I felt like I should call the police. Like, this is way too much noise. How could I be in some part of Los Angeles and be listening to birds? I feel like I'm in the Amazon. And Andrew was saying, well, yeah, I don't even hear them anymore. I'm so used to them. And in my mind, I don't know the story, but in my mind, there's some like 8-year-old boy who got a parrot, and then he just said, like, "Mom, can I have another one?" And then this happened, you know. And for all I know, he's still feeding them. They're coming to his house and he's giving them seed. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure somebody here can tell me the story of the parrots of Pasadena. But I think there's a documentary in the working here. We need to know where all these parrots came from. Yeah. Yeah, and I was looking at them because there was a tree behind the city hall that was mostly all the needles had been taken, a pine tree. And I'm guessing because the parrots use it so much, they just stripped all the needles off of the top of the pine tree. And so they're all hanging out up there and coming and going. And yeah, I was thinking about what we do as monastics living in the monastery. How are we contributing to the horrific situation in Gaza, the situation of ICE abducting, immigrants from their homes, and even non-immigrants here in Los Angeles and around the country, to the federalizing of police troops in Washington, D.C. How are we contributing to these horrors going on? How are we contributing to a response? And the original title I proposed for this Day of Mindfulness was Chaos, Resistance, and Regeneration. But I think some of the organizers thought we'd scare people away with that title. Yeah, so what do we do when we encounter chaos, right? So what I talked about, this practice of non-dualism, of coming back to our present moment experience, of the breathing of the body, is the first step. So just as my sister shared, we don't learn Buddhism just to teach about it. What good would it be? We are just like the parrots, just like blah, 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 repeating what our teacher said, but we have to live it, right? And Thai reminded us over and over. And so even if we were just a young novice, I remember as a novice in Deer Park, there was a filmmaker who came and he wanted to make a film about Thai. And Thai called all of us young bhikshus and novices, and we sat around Thai. And every time the director asked Thai a question, he pointed to one of us, and we had to answer. And we could not, Thai told us, you cannot just parrot and say what Thai taught us. We have to speak from our own experience. And so when we sit up here and everything we do as the monastics, we are speaking from our own experience of transforming our suffering and how we did it, what works for us. So when I ask myself, what are we doing to contribute as a response to this chaos that we're experiencing? I see that we're building a community of resistance. So all of the Plum Village communities around the world, Thai saw them as communities of resistance. So if we are a community of resistance, what are we resisting? So like my sister shared, take your time, go slowly. When you come to Deer Park, if you come for a week, you'll enjoy a lazy day. A lazy day is a day of resistance, a day of rest. Rest is a radical idea. Giving yourself rest. Time to be free from schedules, from plans. We've got this cerebral cortex that's always planning. It's crazy about planning things. You know, we watched how the early wild dogs would hunt in packs. Some of them would go ahead and, you know, make an obstacle for the deer or the antelope that's being chased. And so as human beings, we started to plan. And we grew this brain which requires enormous amounts of glucose and oxygen to stay alive. And we're very, very good at planning things. But our obsession with planning means that we often don't know how to enjoy life. And so Thai invited us to make an appointment with life. Sister Gina, one of our eldest sisters in Lower Hamlet in Plum Village, I asked her once, Sister Gina, because I was a young monk, but it started already because I wear the robe. People come up and ask me all kinds of questions. I cannot walk from here to there without somebody asking me a question about this or that thing in Plum Village, or even about how to transform their suffering, and I'm just going to the bathroom. And so, because we practice not to have to be aimless, not to have a fixed destination. As monks and nuns, our aim is not to have a big day of mindfulness in Los Angeles. Our aim is not to become a great Zen master. Our aim is not even to get enlightened. Our aim is just to enjoy dwelling happily in the present moment, in every moment. Right? So we don't want to get caught in a destination. But I asked her, but how do I deal with it skillfully when so many people are coming asking questions? And Sister Gina said, you can tell them that you have an appointment. And I said, but Sister Gina, but what if I don't have an appointment? I mean, I'm just willing to dwell happily in the present moment, but people are coming and asking questions, and I can't even, go to the bathroom. And she said, you tell them that you have an appointment with life. And that's been one of the pearls of wisdom. I mean, it comes from our teacher originally, but that's how you put the teaching into practice. I have an appointment. Please excuse me. When you notice somebody who's just behaving like the parrot, and they're blah, 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 blah. Dear friend, thank you so much, but I have to excuse myself. I have an appointment. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to keep you there. Yes, thank you, Sister Gina. Yes. Now I cannot use it with any of you, so I let go of secret. We have many secrets in the life of monastic. Some of them we don't release to the public. Anyway, I was looking at the parrots as we walked by yesterday in the tree, and I was reflecting on our sanghas and how we live and practice together, how we're building community together. And I remember a teaching that we learn as novices, which is called the 6 harmonies. We learn to share things together, and that is the foundation of our ability to live as a community. And so what do we share? So one of the things is we share material things. We share food, we share our lodgings, we share tea. These are very critical things. So we live in this virtual era where, since COVID, we've learned to live on Zoom. And I know many of the sanghas are struggling with the question of, online, hybrid, in-person. And I had a long consultation with one young lady in one of the LA sanghas, and she said, all day long I am on a screen. The one day, the one time in the week that I want to be with people. And I go to my sangha, and then people are on the screen again. So this is something for us to think about and reflect on, in the way that we organize our lives. When we have a local sangha, can we have in-person sanghas again? Because we forget that one of the harmonies is to be able to share as well our dwelling space of living together, sharing a space. There's all kinds of oxytocin that's released when we are physically together with people. This is something it's in the wisdom. It's just like this church. It's a human scale thing. Zoom has its place. But can we learn again what it means to be physically together? Like in the monastery, sometimes we have a difficulty with one another. I know it's shocking. But the monks and nuns actually have conflicts. Can you believe that? We're not always like so harmonious, sitting here, smiling. We sometimes like scream at each other. But, if we had to do beginning anew on Zoom, I don't think it would work very well. We need to be physically together. We need to have that proximity. And when we were when I saw that car turning this morning, I was looking at all these folks driving by in cars, and I was looking at us, just standing there as human beings on two legs. This strange primate who walks on two legs. And I think we were bringing back that human scale to Pasadena. I read a story recently about a man who loved his car so much he wanted to get buried in it. I think it was a Cadillac. And he took care of this car, I think all of us know somebody who takes care of their car with a great passion. And this went to a certain extreme where he actually had to arrange, because it's quite expensive to dig the hole, for this Cadillac. And I was reflecting on how, in a way, when we're in our cars, we're already headed towards the tomb. It's kind of like a coffin on wheels. We get in there, and it's all ready, so we can just drive it right into the hole, like that guy. But seriously, we're dealing with, we can hedge around words, but this is fascism we're looking at today. We've been here before. How are we disconnected from each other, driving in our cars, rather than walking, seeing each other as human beings? At Deer Park, we started a new thing. We try to talk to a new neighbor every time we go down for a walk in town, in below the monastery. And we have to say at least 5 sentences. It's not just like, hey, how's it going? Hello. No. 5 sentences, like a real conversation. You allow that person to come into your sphere of influence, into your world. It's not just automatic, hey, how's it going? Yeah. And now science tells you feel happier. People who have conversations with their neighbors, they're happier people. So when's the last time you invited the person in the apartment next to you over for dinner? Maybe you see them when they're coming in and out their door, but when have you invited them to dinner? Have a conversation. Put away your cell phone. When we were walking here from Andrew and Laura Lee's apartment, I saw a man sitting on the stairs, and he's with his knees, and he's down like this. And I thought, maybe he, is living in homelessness. But then suddenly I caught a glimpse, and I saw that he's holding his phone. When we were on the East Coast in the spring, Sister Ancient Temple we were traveling to some big universities, Harvard. There's a center, Thich Nhat Hanh Center for Mindfulness at Harvard now. And they invited us. And Sister Tuasua, we were eating in the refectory at Harvard, and she saw a person, yeah. They had an iPad while they're eating. They're reading their iPad. And they're not looking at the food, just putting like this and reading the iPad. And then they actually put their nose on the iPad and change the page. These are the first-year students at Harvard. So there's a recent article in an Australian philosophical journal which makes an argument that cell phones can be truly considered a kind of parasite in the biological sense. And I remember that when I saw the man with his head down, just looking. So in the Buddhist tradition, on the Bodhisattva path, we first learn to transform our afflictions. But there's a second great obstacle, and that's the obstacle of knowledge. We get addicted to knowing things, addicted to the 24-hour news cycle, addicted to reading books, and then we lose our capacity to actually be present. And so the last thing that disappears, it's actually two things. One is not our addiction to knowledge and our restlessness. They go together. This restlessness is one of the most difficult things to transform on the Bodhisattva path. It means the path of a great and courageous hero who wants to go out and engage with the world. So in the monastery, we learn to let go of our attachment to knowledge as well, and just to be with the present moment. There's many things we don't know. When you let go of your attachment to knowledge, you realize your ignorance. How many wrong perceptions we have about ourselves and about each other. And then we become free. That knowledge helps you to be free. So that's a daily thing I work with. I look at my ignorance and I say, what don't I know? Rather than what do I know? We create a foundation of our knowledge, and that's actually an obstacle that can create all kinds of biases and more difficulties. And then we're like a book. Tai warned us when we train as monks and nuns, don't become like a book. You have to realize the practice, realize your own humanity. So what we're really learning, we're waking up, learning how to be a real human being. And that's what we're doing on a day of mindfulness together. So I'll finish here just to say that at Deer Park we are actively building community. So we've started a happy farm. So we're growing an organic farm. This is a project we started in Plum Village, and now we brought it to Deer Park, growing vegetables right down in the community below the monastery. And so sometimes we go for a walk, we pick tomatoes, cucumbers, kale, and then we just pick it up and we walk right over to our neighbors and we say, hey, here. And then slowly they start to come over and they work in the fields. This is how we resist the chaos, the violence, the fascism. We're building the Thich Nhat Hanh School of Interbeing. Carmen Mack is here, our initiating director of the school. We have the property already, and I think there are some brochures, you can learn more about that. Those of you with young families, move to Escondido. come help us build this school together. This is Thai's vision. Thai's whole life is about education. How to imagine young people from kindergarten learning to invite the bell, learning to practice pebble meditation, the song we sang, breathing in, I'm fresh as a flower, breathing out, I'm solid as a mountain. I'm still water reflecting what is real and true. Space, free. This is what's going on in this school. And learning about Thai life, our teacher, and the difficulties he faced in Vietnam during the war, coming over here, and how he learned to cultivate peace and freedom in the midst of a peace movement that was not very peaceful. Yeah. That's what we want these young kids to be. We want them to be absorbed in that environment. Just like you say when you walk through a meadow, which has the dew in the morning, it saturates your sleeves. You don't need to make any effort. That's the spirit of education that we're starting now at Deer Park. And here in LA, we hope we have a team working to build what we call a Thich Nhat Hanh Museum and Cultural Center. So this can happen more often. So the Sanghas in LA will have a place, a home base. And Thai's books are there, Thai's calligraphy, the story of Thai life, the history of Buddhism in Vietnam, a presentation of Vietnam which is not obsessed with the war here in America. To learn about Vietnamese culture. We want to have a bamboo thicket outside with the traditional Vietnamese village. So you can understand how people lived at human scale in Vietnam and the role that a temple played as part of that human scale living. Anyway, these are some ways that we're building community, and we want you all to be a part of it because we are part of a larger community that we're building together that is resisting. This is the regenerative part. Chaos, resistance, and regeneration. This is how we regenerate our capacity to love, our capacity to be compassionate towards those who suffer. And that is a real response to what's going on in Gaza. That is a real, solid response when we speak to our neighbors, when we learn to reestablish human relationships. And we can take a cue from our Mormon brethren as well. We take care of each other. When we're sick, that can be part of our Sangha life. When somebody is hurting, when they need food, when they're in a difficult situation, they lost their job, or like those in our Sangha who are protecting those threatened by ICE and exportation. That is the work of compassion, engaged work. But we need to do it with peace in our hearts, not with hatred. We learn to transform. So we'll continue now with eating meditation. So I think everyone has brought a meal. So we'll finish with 3 sounds of the bell, and then I think there'll be some announcements, but we have 3 different locations, so we'll be spread out, and we'll have monks and nuns at each place guiding us in our eating together. So thank you so much for listening, and please, if you make one commitment today, well, you can choose many things, there are many practices, but see if you can speak 5 sentences to one new neighbor every day. This is very concrete. Look, I'm the most introverted person. To get here and sit in front of all of you and speak like this took me many, many years. So it's difficult for me. So even if you're the most introverted person, don't rely on the extroverts to talk to the neighbor. You have to do it. You have to learn to get out of yourself. Don't worry about them judging you. Just be kind. It's enough. Thank you.